Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of you to this side event, which is part of the Global Disability Summit 2022. The title of this side event is, "It's the people who are neglected more than the diseases. Why neglected tropical diseases, or NTDs, should be part of the disability conversation." It has been organized by the Leprosy Mission. You can support the summit and this side event by using the hashtag GDS2022 and hashtag commit to change. And I think someone will put the hashtags in the chat. We have sign language interpreters working with us today. We're incredibly grateful for their support. We hope that with their help and by activating the live captions at the bottom of your screen, everyone will be able to follow our conversation over the next hour or so. Also, a big thank you to the live captioners. By way of introductions, my name is Matthias Duck. I'm the Global Advocacy Manager of the Leprosy Mission International, and I also chair the advisory panel of persons affected by leprosy at ILAB, which is the International Federation of Anti-Leprosy Associations. For your information, this side event is being recorded and will be available at a later time, and we will provide the details as to where and how you can access it. Neglected tropical diseases, or NTDs, include several parasitic, viral, and bacterial diseases that cause substantial illness for persons affected by them. Leprosy is one of 20 neglected tropical diseases that affect 1.7 billion people across the world. We will focus our efforts on leprosy, but many of the challenges of leprosy are shared across other NTDs, such as neglect, stigma, gender-related challenges, livelihoods, among other things. Much of what we will hear about the experience of persons affected by leprosy also applies to other NTDs. Leprosy, or Hansen's disease, is still real, and every 2 minutes, a person in the world is diagnosed with leprosy. It is estimated that about 4 million people live with a leprosy-related disability in the world. Unfortunately, this cannot be confirmed since the data is not being collected. Leprosy has often been seen as a purely medical condition. Persons who have experienced leprosy or Hansen's disease or with a leprosy-related disability have not always been part of the disability community. For this reason, we are making every possible effort to ensure that persons who have experienced leprosy are included in the wider disability movement. Today, we will hear directly from persons affected by leprosy, many of whom are leaders in their respective organizations. We will hear how these organizations support persons affected by leprosy and with leprosy-related disabilities, and how they have collaborated with the wider disability community. Above all, we want this conversation to help bring the leprosy community and the disability community closer together. We have a panel of 3 speakers who have experienced leprosy themselves. Before they speak, we will hear from the UN Special Rapporteur for the rights of persons affected by leprosy. We will also see some short videos with testimonials from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. I'm going to invite each of those panelists to speak, and after all the panelists have spoken, we will open up for a time of questions. If you would like to ask a question of the panelists, please post these in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to have your questions answered. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Alice Cruz. Dr. Alice Cruz is the first UN Special Rapporteur on the elimination of discrimination against persons affected by leprosy and their family members. She is a Portuguese anthropologist dedicated to leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease. She has been collaborating for nearly 15 years with the Brazilian social movement of persons who have experienced Hansen's disease. Dr. Alice Cruz is recovering from a recent surgery And so her speech will be read by Mr. Faustino Pinto, who is a leader and an activist from Brazil. Faustino, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues and friends, today is a special day for me because I feel so honored. Oh, I'm sorry. Today is a special day for me because I feel so honored that my message is being read by Mr. Faustino Pinto. I'm not able to do it since I'm recovering from a surgery that affects my ability to speak. As a mandate holder, I have always been very much aware of the fact that there is so much about the experience of Hansen's disease. I cannot grasp. I have always tried to put those with personal experience with Hansen's disease at the center of all the work that is developed by my mandate. In fact, persons who have experienced Hansen's disease are the owner of this mandate created by the Human Rights Council, and they are also the owners of many of its achievements. So, allow me to take this opportunity to make a public statement about my deep admiration for the fierce spirit and astonishingly brilliant mind of Mr. Faustino Pinto. He has been a close friend for more than 1 decade and has been a constant advisor to my work. Thank you. Indeed, Mr. Faustino Pinto is one of the main examples of how people engaged in grassroots and national struggles have been cooperating with organizations of persons with disabilities for a long time now, helping bring awareness to the fight against discrimination, a core issue related to Hansen's disease. Generally speaking, international organizations have been much slower in cooperating with the field of disability. These organizations tend to believe that cooperation between organizations of persons who have experienced Hansen's disease and organizations of persons with disabilities is something new. I'm afraid that this idea is on a reflection of widespread tendency to invisibilize grassroots and national struggles. As such, today I would like to urge international organizations to learn from the grassroots and to take a bottom-up approach to integrating Hansen's disease into the field of disability. There are many important experiences that remain invisibilized due to barriers related to social and economic capital and language, as well as the divide between the global north and south. Unfortunately, in what concerns Hansen's disease, the global north continues to lead decision-making in detriment of the MSc expertise constantly being produced by the global south. Moreover, I make an appeal to international organizations to truly incorporate at the organizational level an important lesson I have learned decades ago from the disability movement. There is a very significant difference between organization for persons affected by Hansen's disease and organization of persons affected by Hansen's disease. A human rights approach to Hansen's disease must put grassroots and national organization of persons affected by Hansen's disease and the forefront of the access to resources and decision-making. These barriers I have mentioned and others are undeniable, connected to the fact that Hansen's disease has been historically framed, either by medical or charity-based approaches. We need a paradigmatic shift cooperation with the disability field is of the essence, since the disability movement has much to teach about self-determination being a non-negotiable condition for the enjoyment of rights on an equal basis with others. The disability movement should also overcome its misunderstanding about Hansen's disease being a mere disease. Persons who have experienced Hansen's disease should be recognized as persons with disability in accordance with Articles 1 and 2 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This is not only based on the grounds of the potential physical impairments. The disease itself can incentivize or on the multiple barriers society imposes to their full participation, but also on discrimination based upon harmful stereotype of Hansen's disease itself. Together, we must push for cooperation aimed at mutual learning between Hansen's disease and disability organizations. We must direct our effort against our common political struggle, all forms of ableism and discrimination. Thank you, Alice Cruz.
Thank you so much, Mr. Faustino, for reading this speech. And thank you, Dr. Alice Cruz, for putting it together. It is a speech that challenges us and that makes us think. And I'm sure that the next speakers will also continue to challenge us and to keep this conversation going. I want to remind you that if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen, and we will try our best to have the panel answer these questions later on. Our next speaker is Mr. Amar Timalsina. And Mr. Timalsina is from Nepal. He's the president for internal relations in the International Association for Integration, Dignity, and Economic Advancement, IDEA, Nepal. And he's also the global network coordinator for IDEA International. Amar, we're very happy to hear from you now.
Thank you so much, dear Matthias, for this wonderful opportunity. I'm very happy to be part of this meeting as one of the panelists. My name is Amar Timalsina. As Matthias mentioned, I work for IDEA International as the Global Network Coordinator. This is my great joy and pleasure to share my experiences and to bring the perspective from Nepal as a person who has personally experienced with Hansen's disease. Next slide, please. Yeah, I would like to share something about myself. I myself is a person, as I mentioned, that who has experienced Hansen's disease. At the age of 12, I was diagnosed with Hansen's disease. Then, like my brothers and sisters around the world, I also suffered a lot. I was ostracized from my village. I was forced to leave my school, my village. And I got the support from the Leprosy Mission Nepal, and also my family, Anandaban Hospital. Then with great difficulty, then I managed to continue my further study. Leprosy Mission Nepal supported me to continue my further study. Then I joined IDEA Nepal, and first as a general member. Then after I was elected as the general secretary, then after that I was elected as the president of IDEA Nepal. And like that, currently I work for IDEA International as the global network coordinator. Next slide, please. Now I would like to share something about IDEA Nepal. IDEA Nepal was established in 1998, but internationally it was established in 1994. After 4 years of the establishment of IDEA internationally, after 4 years in Nepal also, IDEA Nepal was established. It was registered under the government laws, and some major activities. Objective of IDEA Nepal is advocacy for people affected by leprosy and raise awareness about leprosy and its consequences, raising voice against social stigma, legal and all kinds of discrimination against people who have experienced Hansen's disease. And we are very sad to say that still in Nepal there is one law that discriminates people who have experienced Hansen's disease, and we have been trying our level best to abolish this law, and hopefully it will be abolished soon. Next slide, please. I am very happy to share you that Nepal has 7 provinces, and in all 7 provinces, IDEA Nepal exists. So, you know, I can say that IDEA Nepal has become more stronger and stronger. Before some years, like let's say 10 years before, very difficult, you know, our brothers and sisters, they did not like to expose themselves. And people used to see us in different way. Oh, people's organization, like that, in different way, they used to see. But now, proudly, our brothers and sisters, they feel proud that IDEA, this is our own organization. So they have developed such kind of feeling that this is our own organization. So we are very happy, and likewise, our organization IDEA exists in all 7 provinces. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So how IDEA Nepal collaborates with the other disability organization. So during the time of earthquake and COVID-19 also, we reached not only to people who have experienced Hansen's disease with the support, but we also reached to them, reached other disability also with the support, with the relief packages. And we celebrate International Day of Dignity and Respect. We also celebrate All Leprosy Day. So during this time also, on the very special function, we invite the speakers, the leaders from the disability organization, so that collaboratively we work together. So whenever they have programs, events, they also invite leaders from IDEA Nepal, and we also invite them also. And we are also affiliated with NFDN Association and partner with National Federation of the Disabled. So we are also affiliated, one of the members of this organization. So we are strongly loving for disability cards also, participate in events organized by organizations of the disabled in Nepal. So our more efforts is to prevent from disability by early treatment. If we do the early treatment, if we find the new cases, and that will prevent the disability. Next, please. Now I'd like to share you challenges and the lessons learned. So everywhere, not only in Nepal, I think limited resources, though we want to do more, always there is the scarcity of the fund, resources, very difficult in addressing all the people with different disabilities. Have been able to address only the people with physical disability caused by Hansen's disease, more prone to social stigma. So we need more support in resources. So I think that this not only in Nepal, but everywhere in many countries, our brothers and sisters, our organizers, people's organization, they are facing. Our priority, people who have experienced Hansen's disease, our main focus, since this is an organization of people who have experienced Hansen's disease, our focus is leprosy-related disability. And we always think how to bring the people with leprosy-related disability in the mainstream without any hesitation, barrier, or sense of discrimination or stigma. This is our central point. Next, please. IDEA Nepal's interventions to people who have experienced Hansen's disease and those with disability. During the time of COVID-19, we reached around more than 2,000 families with the relief packages. We distributed relief, and not only that, we also provided cash support to near about 80 people who have experienced Hansen's disease. Those who infected with COVID, we also provided them cash support. So during this period, school, colleges, was locked, very difficult, and the earnings of the parents, they lost their earnings. So we provided the scholarship. We are very much thankful to Sasakawa Health Foundation because we got support from Sasakawa Health Foundation, and through that support, we reached to the needy students, children of people who have experienced Hansen's disease. We also provided seed money, and that support was also provided by Sasakawa Health Foundation. So we also provided some individual support, those who were in great need. So during the time of pandemic. Now, next slide, please. So now I'd like to share you some about ongoing projects. So we have currently 4 major projects. One self-actualization project, another is non-formal education. Those who cannot read and write, we are providing them non-formal education. And we have also Heal Nepal project. So very closely we work together with the Leprosy Mission Nepal, especially to identify new cases that will prevent the disability. So we have also conducted IT project. This is very important in the current scenario that after the COVID-19 also, because everything is online, Zoom technology. So we should be very much friendly. So we are very much aware, and we are trying our brothers and sisters. We are developing their capacity, especially in IT. Next, please. So I would like to share some of the photographs that we reached during the time of pandemic. We reached with emergency relief. You can see on the photograph that our brothers and sisters, they received the emergency relief. And as I mentioned, that we reached around more than 2,000 families during the pandemic. Next, please. So this is also the photograph that we reached to our brothers and sisters. Next, please. Yeah, during the time of the indoor patients, our brothers and sisters, those who were hospitalized, so they did not, their visitors did not come to meet them. So at that time, they felt loneliness, and we IDEA members, we felt that why don't we go and meet them and share love and joys with them, even though in the difficult situation, in the difficult period. So we IDEA members, we reached to them, provided fruit, though the fruit was not a great thing, but we provided that. It showed us the love, symbol of love. Next, please. We welcome any opportunity to collaborate with organizations of people with disability. So at last, I would like to say that we, People's Organization, we people who have experienced Hansen's disease, we should be united together. If we don't speak ourselves, means we speak. So that we should be united together. If we are united, our voices are strong. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amar, for this very excellent presentation. And we will now see a video about a program called Found, which is also based in Nepal.
Sorry, bear with me while I just have some technical difficulties here playing the video.
Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world. Many people suffer from poverty here. On top of that, many of them even suffer from different kinds of neglected tropical diseases, NTDs. As most of the NTDs have long-term consequences, people may lose their physical ability or other abilities which can cause difficulties to perform regular activities. Most importantly, they will lose the status of being like everyone else in society. Hence, they will become disabled.
कुष्ठरोग लागिसकेपछि हस्पिटल भर्ना हुँदाखेरि मेरो घरको मान्छे गाउँको मान्छे इष्टमित्र छरछिमेकीहरूले चाहिँ फलानुलाई कुष्ठरोग लागेको रहेछ यो चाहिँ एकदमै खतरा रोग हो यो सर्छ यो चाहिँ एकदम पाप गर्ने मान्छेहरूलाई लाग्छ यो मान्छेलाई छुनु हुँदैन यो मान्छेसँग खेल्नु हुँदैन बस्नु हुँदैन भनेर उनीहरूले मसँग फरक व्यवहार देखाए र उहाँहरूले चाहिँ मलाई त्यस्तो खालको फरक व्यवहार देखाउँदाखेरि म एकदम एक्लोपन महसुस गर्थेँ
घर परिवारले उसको बुहानी बित्यो उसको हजुरबुहानी बित्यो यो रोगको कारणले यसलाई पनि यही रोग निस्केको छ यो मर्डे हुन्थ्यो यो चाहिँ बरु नजन्मे भए हुन्थ्यो भने जस्तो गर्नुहुन्थ्यो अनि 1 महिना जस्तो चाहिँ गोठमा राख्नु भएको थियो
But is it possible to come back? Is it possible to overcome this long-haul stigma? Employment opportunity is one of the most effective ways to transform a person trapped inside this long-haul stigma to a person having own dignity in the society. Tarana Signal, who is working in the Found Project at the Leprosy Mission Nepal as employment counselor, and Prima Gardi Magar, currently running her own pharmacy with the seed money support provided by Found Project, has overcome the stigma to come back and stand before the society as a dignified person.
काम सँगसँगै मेरो जीवनमा पनि परिवर्तन आएको छ मैले लेप्रोसी मिसनमा काम गरिरहँदाखेरि मैले समयमै तलब पाउँछु राम्रो तलब पाउँछु मैले घर परिवार राम्रोसँग चलाउन सकेको छु छोराछोरीलाई राम्रोसँग पढाउन सकेको छु र सबै कुराहरू मिल्दै आउँदाखेरि मलाई समाजले हेर्ने एउटा दृष्टिकोण पनि फरक भएको छ अहिले
म त फार्मेसीमा डिप्लोमा गरेँ सो त म अब आफ्नो फार्मेसी खोलेर बस्न सकेँ नि त अनि अरूको मुख टाक्नु त परेन आफू बिजी भइयो सर अनि आफू बिजी भयो आफ्नो काम छ आफ्नो अब व्यवसाय छ भन्ने भयो त्यसमा फोकस जान्छ त्यसपछि त्यो गरिसकेपछि 2-4 पैसा हुन्छ 2-4 पैसा भएपछि अब आफूलाई चाहेको ठाउँमा खर्च गर्न सक्यो चाहेको गर्न सक्यो नि त अनि त्यति बेला आत्मविश्वास बढ्दो रहेछ कि मेरो आफ्नो गरेर खाएको हो नि त तपाईको खाएको छैन त भन्ने हो आत्मविश्वास बढ्छ अनि मान्छेले एकल भएर बस्छ समाजमा सम्मानित जीवन जिउनलाई सहयोग गर्छ
We thank Mr. Taranat Sigdel and Ms. Prima Gardi Magar, as well as our team in Nepal, for putting together this very inspiring video. I would now like to introduce Ms. Jayashree P. Kunju. I hope I said that right, Jayashree. Jayashree is a good friend, as are the other speakers too, but also she's the vice chair of the Lepra Society. She's the member of the board of the International Association for Integration, Dignity, and Economic Advancement, IDEA. And We look forward to your presentation, Jayashree.
Thank you so much, my dear friend Matthias, for the introduction. And it's wonderful to be here. And at the outset, I want to just thank Dr. Alice for the call she has made for having people affected be at the forefront of, and creating self-determination. I think that is very powerful. And the call to have the disability movement include leprosy, and for the wonderful presentation by my dear brother Amar. And your leadership is always inspiring. Thank you so much. So a little background, I am a woman who suffered from leprosy almost 4 decades ago. And the journey of my physical cure was perhaps uncomplicated. However, the journey of my psychological cure was not only long ridden, but also ridden with fear and anxiety and hopelessness. And in fact, I experienced all this even though I faced no isolation or discrimination from in the circle that I was. My first response to the news that I have leprosy was that I'm now a nobody, and I don't know where it came from. But I got it like that from now on, what I do or what I achieve, and what I want or need must not matter, that I have no rights to have rights of my own. If I could unwind and rewind the script of the interactions I had with the private doctor, which the doctor who my family took me to, and if I could also rewrite the interactions my family members had with me, I could have created a new future then itself. That would have been bereft of the fear that I experienced for many years. That perhaps would have had me just be the same me pre-leprosy. I still, after all these years, I still remember vividly the doctor not really having eye contact with me. And that made it very important for me. He didn't laugh, he didn't joke, he didn't educate me. He did not let me know that this disease is not such a big deal and that soon I will be cured. And also that I'm not bad, I'm not untouchable, that I'm still entitled to be a young woman with ambitions and dreams. And the doctor also missed letting me know that I'm still entitled to this secret, that I don't have to break this news to all and sundry, because in fact, many people may not understand. And for me, that was important because I felt guilty about holding this secret. When I looked at my friends or met new people, I always wondered, am I doing the right thing by hiding? So there was this desire inside me to come out in the open, but that would have been very inappropriate. So this is how I lived. And if I look at what happened at home, it was like my parents gave me all the love and immense care, but they're also sad. And that was not okay for me because I got it like that I'm the cause of that sadness of theirs, and that I caused the sadness. So therefore I was left with a sense of isolation, inner discrimination with myself, and fear of being someone not like the rest. And all this just happened inside me. I had no reservoir of self-motivation to dig into to protect myself at that stage. Many, probably decades, I could say, a decade and plus more later, there did come a day when I was ready to take responsibility for all those experiences I went through. And that is when I got my confidence back, but not before taking the long winding road to such a transformation. And this was a stage in life when I could give up my fear and take a stand for others who could be in my position. And that led me to the work of leprosy. I run my own business, but apart from that, I'm involved with many charities. And as part of IDEA, I'm really a proud member of board member of IDEA, and there is a group of us who meet regularly online, and there's a lot of sharing and caring happening. And there are many of the people in the group who have gone through disabilities or continue to, go ahead with continuous, stages of disability. It goes worse at times, but then there is this fellowship and there's this sense of belonging, which is very important. People like me are the true beacons. And I say people like me, I include Faustino, I include Amar, Matthias. We are the true beacons of light for those suffering from the experience of neglected tropical diseases. For the diseases are not so much neglected as we are speaking, as the people themselves are. So long as health workers, which includes the country's health minister, the top health directors, everybody in the medical fraternity, the public doctors, private doctors, hospital staff, nurses, everybody. So long as we don't educate all of them and sensitize all of them, and so long as they are not given the responsibility to look at the person with NTD as an individual who needs a cure and care protocol that includes conversations, communications, and education. So long as those suffering from NTDs are not placed at the center of this treatment protocol, those with NTDs will continue to feel, and in fact, will be neglected. As with NTD, as with leprosy, many NTDs cause disabilities for the patients, and that makes the situation worse. The disabilities are a constant reminder of what one went through, both physically and psychologically. And because of the nature of the disease like leprosy, people feel that they're different from the rest of the disability sector. However, these individuals with the passion to make a difference to those like them are the ones we must look up to as role models to speak on behalf of people with disabilities caused by their disease, and also to speak on behalf of other disabilities, because disability is disability. It doesn't matter the cause of it. I mean, the cause doesn't matter really. If we can strengthen the voices of these role models, a lot can be achieved by them to strive for the full implementation of the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. We simply cannot afford to tolerate seeing people live with and progressively get worse disability. We must intervene, speak up, raise our voice. I personally experienced watching a few individuals who were almost going to live with extreme disabilities because the medical fraternity either thought that these individuals have no rights for effective medical care because they could not afford it for themselves, or because the hospital infrastructure would be burdened if the patient was kept for longer till the treatment was completed. In these cases, my loudness of voice helped. To a large extent, care was given to these people who were on the verge of losing their abilities to carry on normal day-to-day activities. During the pandemic wave, many with disabilities who I personally know, who live from one meal to the other, were left without any means for their livelihood. During these times, individuals from organizations of people affected by leprosy mobilized resources. Stories of colony members reaching out to communities, not necessarily charities alone, and also to non-leprosy people abound. I mean, there are so many people who came up and started contributing to anybody who didn't have the means, which was very inspiring. Now, if we are to move from disability to ability, we have to have more such empowering interactions between the affected people and the general community, with the former spearheading such interactions. Now, many NTDs, especially leprosy, receive a lot of attention. We all are part of international, national, state level, charity level, seminars, conferences, coalitions, etc., etc. However, the community of people with the NTDs end up developing moderate to very high levels of disabilities that progressively get worse. Surely, I feel there must be some reason that we have not identified or distinguished. And it could be done with what was spoken by the earlier speakers, that at the center of the work are people with the disability and the disease who have understood it in a much better way. And we need to bring them in more to have their voices be heard more than to just have them as tokenistic participation. So I'm really calling for that. And if you have to bring acceleration to ensure that no one suffers from the avoidable impact of disabilities from NTDs, we will need to know that people who have experienced the disease have to come center stage. I can say that again, to be part of the larger disability conversation and learn from the disability coalitions. So we need to do our homework, and we need to learn from each other and take charge of the job on hand. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak my mind.
Thank you so much to you, Jayashree, for sharing so personally and at the same time speaking into the larger context and making us think and challenging us. We have another brief video with messages from India and Bangladesh that our colleagues helped us put together.
আমি মোহাম্মদ কামাল উদ্দিন, চেয়ারম্যান আলো সোসাইটি বাংলাদেশ। আমি নিজে একজন কুষ্ঠ আক্রান্ত ব্যক্তি হওয়ায় আমার অভিজ্ঞতা হয়েছে যে সরকারি হাসপাতালগুলিতে কুষ্ঠ আক্রান্ত ব্যক্তি ও প্রতিবন্ধীদের চিকিৎসা হতো না। এই অবস্থা পরিবর্তনের জন্য আমি এলটিসিসি মিটিংয়ে দাবি উত্থাপন করি এবং টিএলএমের সহযোগিতায় স্বাস্থ্যমন্ত্রীর সাথে কথা বলি এবং দাবি উপস্থাপন করি। একটি উল্লেখযোগ্য অর্জন হলো স্বাস্থ্য অধিদপ্তর জেলা ও উপজেলা কুষ্ঠ আক্রান্ত ব্যক্তিদের চিকিৎসার প্রদানের জন্য সংশ্লিষ্ট কর্তৃপক্ষগুলিকে চিঠি প্রেরণ করে। আমি দৃঢ়ভাবে বিশ্বাস করি কুষ্ঠ আক্রান্ত ব্যক্তি ও প্রতিবন্ধী ব্যক্তিদের অন্য মানুষের মতো সম্মানের সহিত বেঁচে থাকার অধিকার আছে। এখনও তারা বৈষম্যের শিকার এবং এই বৈষম্যহীনভাবে বসবাস করার জন্য দরকার। আমি চাই বৈষম্যহীন সমাজ বসবাস করবে। কুষ্ঠ আক্রান্ত ব্যক্তি ও প্রতিবন্ধী ব্যক্তি যারা ফুটপাতে বসবাস করে, আমি চাই সরকারি ব্যবস্থাপনায় তাদের জন্য আশ্রয়স্থল হয়েছে। এটা করতে গেলে স্থানীয় গণ্যমান্য ব্যক্তি, স্কুলের শিক্ষক ও ধর্মীয় উপাসনালয়ের ইমামদের, ক্লাব প্রতিনিধি ও జనప్రతినిధిদের সাথে অ্যাডভোকেসি করা দরকার। ধন্যবাদ।
హాయ్, నమస్తే అండి. నా పేరు పాస్టర్ ఎలీషా. నేను ఇండియా, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్, శ్రీకాకుళం డిస్టిక్ చెందిన వ్యక్తిని. నేను కూడా ఒక లెపర్సీ పేషెంట్ని. బ్రెడర్ ఫ్యూచర్ డెవలప్మెంట్ ట్రస్ట్ వారు మరి కుష్ఠరోగుల పట్ల అనేక సంక్షేమ కార్యక్రమాలు, వారి బిడ్డల పట్ల చదువు, పోషణ, ప్రయోజకులు చేయడం నేను విన్నాను. 2002లో వారితో డైరెక్టర్ గారైన పరిసిపోగుల విక్టర్ బాబు గారిని కలవడం జరిగింది. వారు చేస్తున్న అనేక కార్యక్రమాల్లో నేను కలిసి పనిచేయాలని కోరినప్పుడు వారు నాకు ఎస్ఎల్ఓగా పోస్టింగ్ ఇచ్చారు. తద్వారా నేను అనేక కార్యక్రమాలు చేయడానికి, రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్న కాలనీలు విజిట్ చేయడానికి నాకు అవకాశం కలిగింది. అందులో భాగంగా రాజమండ్రిలో ఉన్న సైమాన్ లెప్రసీ కాలనీకి విజిట్ చేసినప్పుడు అక్కడ పరిస్థితులు చూసేటప్పుడు అక్కడ రోడ్లు కానీ, లేక మంచినీటి కొళాయిలు కానీ, లేక లైట్స్ కానీ, డ్రైనేజీ కానీ లేదు. నేను మా టీము వారు అక్కడ నివసించి వాళ్ళ కష్ట సుఖాలు తెలుసుకొని ఈస్ట్ గోదావరి కలెక్టర్ గారితోనూ కమిషనర్తోనూ మాట్లాడి వారికి పరిస్థితి వివరించిన తర్వాత వాళ్ళు వెంటనే మరి విజిట్ చేసి కాలనీని ఒక 45 లక్షల రూపాయలు బడ్జెట్ ఏర్పాటు చేసి ప్రభుత్వ నిధులతో అక్కడ సిమెంట్ రోడ్లు, డ్రైనేజీ వ్యవస్థ, మంచినీటి కొళాయిలు, ఇంటింటికి లైట్స్ ఏర్పాటు చేశారు. అలాగే అది మాకు ఒక విజయం. తద్వారా అనేక కాలనీలు ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో విజిట్ చేయడానికి నాకు అవకాశం కలిగింది. అనేక మందితో అడ్వకేసీ ప్రోగ్రాం ఏర్పాటు చేసి ఆ ప్రోగ్రాం ద్వారా వాళ్ళకున్న సమస్యలు ఆయా జిల్లా కలెక్టర్లు, కమిషనర్లు, ప్రభుత్వ యంత్రాంగంతో మమేకమై మేము అనేక కార్యక్రమాలు చేయడానికి మాకు సహాయపడ్డది. ఆ విషయాలను బట్టి చాలా మంది అట్టడుగునుంటున్న కుష్ఠరోగ కాలనీలో ఉన్న ప్రజలు బయటకు వచ్చి ఇప్పుడిప్పుడే స్థిరపడుతున్నారు. దానిలో భాగంగా ఫైల్ ఏరియా వాళ్ళు 2 కాళ్ళు బోరకాలతో చాలా బాధపడుతూ పోషణ లేక ఉండేటప్పుడు నా దగ్గరికి కొంతమంది వచ్చారు. వాళ్ళు వచ్చినప్పుడు కలెక్టర్ గారి దృష్టికి తీసుకెళ్తే వాళ్ళు వెంటనే వికలాంగుల సంక్షేమ శాఖలో వారిని విలీనం చేస్తూ సదరన్ సర్టిఫికెట్లు వారికి మంజూరు చేశారు. తద్వారా ఇప్పుడు 85 మంది 5,000 రూపాయల పెన్షన్ పొందగలుగుతున్నారు. ఈ విషయాన్ని రాష్ట్ర స్థాయి నుండి దేశ స్థాయి వరకు తీసుకొని వెళ్లి వారి వాదనను, వారి కష్టాలు, వారి బాధలు అనేక మందికి తెలియపరచడానికి ప్రభుత్వంతోనూ, రాజకీయ నాయకులతోనూ, స్వచ్ఛంద సేవా సంస్థలతోనూ, ఎన్జిఓలతోనూ మేము ఈ బృహత్తరమైన కార్యక్రమాన్ని చేపట్టడానికి ఆశపడుతున్నాం. అలాగనే ముందుకు కలిసి వెళ్తున్నాం. ఎంతటి సహకారాన్ని అందించిన TLM ఇంగ్లాండ్ వేల్స్ వారికును, బ్రైటర్ ఫ్యూచర్ వారికును నా ప్రత్యేకమైన ధన్యవాదాలు.
We thank Pastor Chigula Elisha from Advocacy Lead Brighter Future Development Trust India and Muhammad Kamal Uddin, President of ALO Society in Bangladesh, as well as the rest of our team for putting together these videos. Our next and last speaker is Mr. Faustino Pinto. Faustino Pinto is the Vice National Coordinator of the Movimento da Reintegração das Personas Atingidas pela Hanseníase, or Movement of Reintegration of Persons Affected by Hansen's Disease, MORHAN. Faustino, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the Leprosy Mission and Special Matthias Duque for inviting me to this important event and to talk about hot topic when it comes to Hansen's disease, but so little worked on in fact, and what makes me most excited to talk about it is that I will be able to talk a lot more about what can really limit us in this very complex Hansen's disease world. And I say that because some people think that a person affected by Hansen's disease disabilities are only of physical nature, but in fact, it's much broader than that. Actually, this conversation goes beyond physical disabilities. It's important to say that the term disabilities does not define who we are or what really happens in our lives. Of course, there are limitations to certain daily tasks that need an unusual effort for us to live a productive life. But we must rethink the way we see the people affected. We must focus on the individual as a whole and not just on their physical impairments. Look at people and see the other existing forms of exclusion and limitation, such as financial, intellectual, linguistic, technological, accessibility, and so on. Hansen's disease imposes barriers that sometimes seem insurmountable. This is more because of the way we are seeing that how we see ourselves. And within this biomedical model of relationship between health professionals and the people affected by Hansen's disease, there is a very structural problem. I mean, the focus of health professionals and government entities is on the disease. That is, they focus on the disease and not on the individual affected by it. We will have and will produce a legion of people with major physical limitation to live in society. By the way, I would like to make a criticism that I hope will be seen as a constructive by IBAS corporate and institutional environment. I'm talking about the language barrier. There are people around the world that are fully capable to contribute to this debate. There is more to this world than Faustino, Arthur Custódio, Amar, Matthias Duque, Paula Brandão, Ratina, and so on. Most people affected by Hansen's disease did not have and do not have access to social opportunities and formal education that would allow them to speak a second language. which does not mean that they are unable to contribute to these debates and struggle. They end up being limited by the language barrier imposed by the institution that coordinate these events. Just imagine that in countries and continents as large in population numbers, rich in culture and popular knowledge as Brazil, India, and Africa, it would be wonderful to have more people with us, fighting, have their say of the facts, bringing their life story and struggle to the world's light. ILAB's institutional official language is English, but nothing prevents the introduction of other languages. I myself was glad when French was introduced. For this universe to remain plural, we need to include Portuguese, Hindi, and other languages that are necessary for a better understanding of whatever is spoken and discussed in this space of debate and construction based on lessons learned. I make this appeal to ILAB to make translators available, to make events more inclusive and accessible for people affected by enhancing disease worldwide. We need social inclusion rather than exclusion. The MOHAN, Movement for the Reintegration of People Affected by Enhancing Disease, has a great history of fight for human rights, inclusion, accessibility, and especially enjoying the attention of the governmental political system to the issues of limitation imposed by the disease and by the governmental and political system. This is why we have already intervened in several moments of our country's history. I will now share with you some of these battles. In 1995, together with other institutions, the movement asked the federal government to change the term from leprosy to Hansen disease. The bill was signed by the then President Fernando Henrique Cardoso, becoming a historic landmark in the fight against social exclusion. The use of the disease-related term leprosy and its linguistic derivatives was prohibited in our government layers, both in official documents or speech. MOHAN is in several important councils for the fight for collective health in our country, for the elderly, adolescents, women, health, social assistance. In the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, we occupy this space at the national, state, and municipality nearly nationwide. I will talk a little about Law 11,520 through the words of my national coordinator, Arthur Custódio. It was 26 years of struggle, of conquests, some small and others more significant ones, but all with equal importance in the fight against Hansen disease. MOHAN, throughout its history, has strengthened itself and overcome the obstacle and moved forward in the fight against Hansen disease and still stick to its main purpose, the fight against prejudice and stigma. These are factors that exist today due to the prophylaxis and treatment adopted until 1986 to control the disease, which consisted exclusively of taking every person diagnosed with Hansen disease, at the time known as leprosy, to compulsory isolation in a cruel and inhuman way. The movement fought then for the recognition by the state of the error and damage caused to these people. A long battle that found victory in 2007 through a bill sponsored by Senator Tião Viana, together with MOHAN. President Lula then said a provisional measure which enacted Law 11,520 of September 18, 2007, guarantee every person that was forcibly isolated by the state in a leprosarium as isolation, institution, or NUM, a lifetime indemnity pension, This law is a milestone in the fight against the disease in Brazil and in the world. Only Japan had done the same thing. And it shows us that our fight has results. It makes it possible for at least 10,000 people who are victims of this cruelty by the state to be minimally compensated for the suffering imposed on them. Special pension, a great achievement. The law is more comprehensive and always carry action for people with disabilities. Both Mohan and its Justice and Human Rights Access Network on January 17, 2022, had a great victory in the fight for human rights. Federal Judge Fábio Teneblanc of the 3rd Federal Court of Rio de Janeiro delivered the order of Mohan's actions against President Bolsonaro for using the term leprosy, meaning of Hansen's disease. With a favorable decision for our movement, the case began on December 22 through Carlos Nicodemus, Mohan Justice and Human Rights Access Network, volunteer lawyer. Today's order determines that the union and its representatives, including the President of the Republic, Jair Bolsonaro, refrain from using such terms and its derivatives under penalty of a daily fine of 50,000 Brazilian reais. It was necessary to go to court to seek to guarantee a ban that is already provided for by law. When the president mentions leprosy in an official speech, he violates law 9010 of 1995. He also violates the dignity of people affected by Hansen's disease by using a prejudicial language in our country. If the presidency of our country does not care about the legislation of Brazil itself, then civil society needs to act firmly and attentively in defense of what has already been conquered as a human right. Since its foundation, Mohan has been involved in the inclusion of people affected by Hansen's disease. We do not only see the disease, a bacillus or physical impairments. We see limitations and discrimination imposed by the disease in the system. It's about inclusion, accessibility, and respect for human rights that we fight daily and tirelessly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your passionate speech, Faustino, and also for your constructive criticism. We are taking it to heart, and we will continue to look for ways to address the issues of language barriers together with persons affected by Hansen's disease. We would now like to address some of the questions that have been asked. And please note that there is the Q&A box. And the first question comes from Pierina de Sousa. She's saying self-determination is a non-negotiable condition of the grassroots organizations, national and international organizations of persons with disability. However, this does not appear to be the case with organizations of persons affected by Hansen's disease. What can be done to intensify change in this direction, greater and more meaningful participation of persons affected at all levels of the organizational structure and implementation? I see that Jayashree is typing something. Someone else want to talk about this? Self-determination, participation of persons affected?
Matthias, I was not typing. I just clicked on the wrong.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
You want to say something?
Answer. Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Perina. Yes. Well, I think one of the things that I observe is that the people affected who are working in certain organizations or having a role have not gotten together to form a coalition by themselves. So I think the power of self-determination lies in people affected getting together. It is not the organization which is important. I think Alice did touch upon that. So I think there is some kind of a momentum, some kind of a letting go from the, the umbrella of the organization that we need to see. And that's why we need to have more and more autonomous, individuals coming who can crisscross and belong to different organizations and speak their heart and mind out. And many a times there are certain people who or organizations that represent the work with, say, with government of the country or with WHO. I think it needs, the barriers need to break. So the voices need to be louder. I'm not sure I'm answering the question right, but this is my sense as to what could be done.
If Amar and Faustino want to say something, just speak up. I know that we have, I know that Amar is I think the original author of the phrase meaningful and impactful participation of all persons affected, right?
Yes, thank you, Matthias, so much. You have rightly mentioned that, wherever I go, whenever I get platform, I always say meaningful and impactful participation in all levels, grassroots, national, and international level. So I think that, what I want to reinforce, as Jayashree mentioned, people's organizations should be very strong, and we need to be united together. So this is, if we are united together, our voices are strong. And so this is, and this is very important, So if we are united, if our organizations are strong, then our voices are heard. So I would like to request all the national, international organizations to hear the clear voice of people who have experienced Hansen's disease. We need more champions. We need more voices. So that will ultimately help to reduce stigma, and and also ultimately it will lead to zero discrimination. Thank you.
Faustino, if you want to say something in Portuguese, I will try to translate it.
Yes, in Portuguese. My English end.
Ok. Fala, amigo.
Então, assim, é um direito das pessoas participarem de todos esses eventos, não importa se seja um evento só de pessoas atingidas por rancenias, mas que também seja eventos governamentais, para que essas vozes elas possam ser ouvidas de verdade, porque muitas vezes as pessoas nos pedem para falar sobre o que estamos pensando, mas não nos escutam de verdade. E aí...
Okay. Participating in these kinds of events, or even in anything that is like organized by the government, is a right of every person. And many times there are people who would be willing to participate, but they're not given the opportunity.
Essa frase, nada sobre nós sem nós, ela deveria ser constantemente dita para ser ouvida pelo governo. Hoje estamos produzindo milhares de pessoas com incapacidades físicas. E isso tem tornado as pessoas atingidas por rancenias muito mais distante de um sonho de viver em sociedade de uma forma mais justa. Thank you.
the phrase that comes from the disability movement, "nothing about us without us," needs to be repeated constantly. Today, as a result of a disease like leprosy, we have thousands of people with impairments, and these people are being prevented from having a life of dignity, a full life, and that needs to be reversed. Thank you. I would like to take these two questions together from Janine and from Paul. Janine is asking, I am interested to know how many organizations of persons with disabilities representatives have persons affected by leprosy or other neglected tropical diseases among their members. And Paul is asking that given the very particular discrimination and prejudice that surrounds persons affected by leprosy or Hansen's disease, how does this impact the creation of links or collaboration between the self-support groups of persons with disabilities and of persons affected by leprosy or Hansen's disease? I think, Jayashree, you asked to say something, and then we'll open up to the others.
Yes, so thank you, Matthias. I think Janine's question, Janine's question, I would not be really the person who can answer that. I would like others who have the expertise to answer that. But Paul's question is so pertinent, and what I want to say here is, it is really about the lack of ability of people with leprosy to come out. So I would say categorically, except the people you see on the screen and a few others who are not on the screen right now, very few people who want to speak up or can speak up are willing to come out. And so I think it is like there's a huge impact. And this could also be the reason why leprosy continues to remain where it is, that we are not seen. The entire disability is invisible. And that has caused such a big dent in all the work the charities do, because this funds coming in, this care and cure and everything happening, but the impact doesn't spread. So it gets isolated with the individual who is suffering, and people are not willing to come out. So I think it is also to do with something missing in the entire link as to why the people affected by leprosy are still concerned about that they will be neglected or they are not okay to come out. So I think the prejudice and discrimination, I don't find that much evidence of that as individually people, being closed. And I can be, anybody can challenge what I'm saying, but I feel that it is really time that we kind of find ways of motivating people to come out in larger numbers. And that's the time when we can really break through. So thanks for the question, Paul, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jayashree. Faustino or Amar, you want to say something?
Yeah, this is very good question raised by Janine. Yes, as Jayashree mentioned, we need to amplify our voices. So even in the disability community, our voices are not so much heard. So our voices should be heard, and leprosy-related disability also should come in the mainstream of the disability, so that our voices will be more strong and our voices could be heard. So this is very important that we need to advocate for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Amar. Faustino.
Então, Matias, eu me considero uma pessoa bonita, né? Essas coisas aqui não me definem.
I consider myself a beautiful person. This does not define me.
E yes. as pessoas elas precisam se amar. porque o autopreconceito é que faz com que as pessoas acabem se afastando, mas eu acredito que hoje menos pessoas têm preconceito com a doença. O preconceito ele vem mais de quem nos trata, né, nos dá tratamento médico, do que da própria sociedade.
Pode repetir a última parte?
Que a gente hoje sofre mais preconceito das pessoas que nos dão tratamento de saúde do que da própria sociedade.
Okay, so Faustino is saying that people need to love themselves, and some people are affected by, very affected, they internalize what other people say or think. But Faustino is also saying that sometimes the greatest prejudice comes not from the surrounding society, but from health professionals.
Aqui no Brasil, a gente conversa com as pessoas para que elas não tenham medo de se expor, de mostrar, porque hanseníase não é um dragão. Hanseníase é uma doença que tem tratamento, que tem cura, e que as sequelas, elas são consequência de um serviço ruim, de um serviço de saúde ruim. Elas não têm culpa de adoecer, elas não têm culpa de suas sequelas. Elas precisam ter dignidade. É o que a gente fala para as pessoas, que elas precisam ter dignidade, mas que venha do governo, que dê melhoria na qualidade de vida dessas pessoas.
People need to realize that Hansen's disease is not a dragon. It is a disease. It is a disease that can be diagnosed and treated. And if sometimes people have developed impairments, but it has more to do with lacking of good and timely medical attendance. So we need governments to step up and to diagnose and treat people in time to prevent impairments. And people don't need to feel guilty for what happened to them because governments were not doing their job on time. Thank you, Faustino.
E dizer que nessa live só tem gente bonita, né? Nessa live só tem gente bonita.
He says that here in this webinar, there's only pretty people, only beautiful people. And we all agree, right? Sadly, we are coming to the end. There is a question from our good friend Monty about how international NGOs can support or facilitate the development of strong national organizations of persons affected by leprosy and encourage persons affected to step forward. I think that's perhaps the $1 million question. We hope that we will continue to work on that. We are coming to an end, and I want to thank all of the panelists and the participants. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think we advanced a little bit on the understanding, but we understand that this is an ongoing conversation. We need to keep talking. I hope that we are also all encouraged to address disabilities if they're caused by NTDs or leprosy or Hansen's disease or otherwise, to address them in a way that upholds the human rights of all persons. This meeting has been recorded and it will be available to watch later. We will publicize that. I want to thank all of you and goodbye. Take care of yourselves.